Welcome everybody to today's webinar. We're going to be focusing on rebar detailing and Allplan today. My name is David Zapka. Just happy to have everybody here today. Excited to present this workflow and these products to you here today. So want to start off with a couple introductions about the presenters here today. So my name is David Zapka. Currently a solutions engineer here with SDS2. I've been with the company here for about 16 years now. Been doing everything from support to management, sales, and now I'm the kind of technical expert, if you will, for our sales staff here with SDS2. I have Frank Holtz here with me today. Frank, you want to give me a little background on yourself?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, David. Yes, I'm also a senior technical consultant here at Allplan. I've been with the company for almost 5 years now, back in 2018 when we came to the States. Before that, I was a structural engineer involved in all kinds of engineering with precasters, even up into making their bulkheads. I spent a few years actually developing software for that industry before I joined the team at Allplan. And when I came across Allplan during BIM implementation, I decided to join the team.
Okay, great. Thanks, Frank. So just a couple things here to mention to begin with. So we do have a special offer for those of you attending this webinar today on the Allplan Engineering subscription. So we're willing to give 50% off your first subscription, and along with that, we'll provide you 2 additional licenses at no cost for the first 6 months of that subscription. Stick around here for this whole webinar. We'll provide an offer code that you can give to your sales rep when you have those discussions after the webinar. So, a little bit about what we'll see today, Frank. This is your area here with the rebar detailing and Allplan. So, you want to give us just a real quick rundown of what we're going to actually see in Allplan today?
Yeah, so we'll see some of the workflows, starting with bringing in a model that David had previously created. We'll bring it into our collaboration platform. We'll then transfer it over to Allplan itself, where we'll actually author some reinforcement, create some schedules, some drawings, and then actually pass that information back through the collaboration software so we can all view it together, check for collisions, and do all the things that are necessary when you're bringing a federated model together. And that's about it.
Okay. Very good. Very good. So a little background on the 2 companies here that we have. So SDS2's been around since 1981. We've been one of the market leaders here in the steel detailing and fabrication industry for the past 40 years plus now. Up until about 2016, we were a privately held company. We were acquired by Nemetschek Group in 2016, late 2016 it was. And here recently, at the beginning of 2022, we merged together with our sister company from that group, Allplan, which Frank is a part of as well. And here we are today, now doing joint presentations together. So, Frank, I'll let you give some of the background on Allplan then.
All right, yeah, so Allplan is a little bit older. We started in the early 60s as an engineering company. In the early 80s, we developed our first piece of software, Allplan version 1. That wasn't until 83, so a little bit later than SDS2, but it's grown exponentially since then. We have 250,000 customers all over the United States, all over the world. 600 employees all over the world as well. We started our office here in the United States back in 2018, but we've had customers here for a while before that. And okay. That's it. Allplan. Now I could go into the demo if you'd like.
Yep, absolutely. I don't want to give away the promo code just yet. We've got to make them wait till the end. So yeah, if you would like to share your screen and walk through the demo here.
All right. Let me bring up my screen. All right, and you should be able to see my screen at this point. This is Allplan. Before we get too much into an introduction, we're going to go ahead and bring a model into here first. As I mentioned, we have Bimplus, our collaboration platform. There's many different implementations. It can be implemented into many different softwares. Here we have it implemented in Allplan, obviously. And I'm going to start the Bimplus model reference import tool. I'm going to select my project. Once I've done that, it's going to open up my BIM Explorer. This is one of the tools inside of the toolbox that is Bimplus. This lets you visualize models, select models. You can click on pieces inside of there, get some information about it. It does a whole lot of other stuff in the web implementation, but here it's just meant for selecting the model so that we can hit this download button and import it. And I've actually previously done that, so I'm just going to bring up my model here. And as we can see, well, we haven't seen yet, but when we go over to David for his portion in SDS2, you'll notice that this is the model that he ended with. He sent it through Bimplus. I've obviously just pulled it in here, and this is what we're ready to work on. The very first thing we're going to do is just jump right into it, start adding some reinforcement. Before I do that, I'm going to go over to my object browser. This is a great tool for organizing all the data that you have in Allplan, right? These 3D models can get hefty or, be a morass of information. So what we want to do is just hide everything that's not pertinent, turn back on what is. We can see these walls. We'll notice that these elements actually come in as if they're Allplan elements. So we have our foundations, our walls. If we double click on one of these elements, it's going to open up the tool that was used to create it. So we can see all of our layers, our height information, material information, that kind of stuff. It comes over perfect parity, just as if it was created inside of Allplan for you. All right, so let me go ahead and turn that off, turn on my walls here. And you'll notice that everything we're seeing in the 2D views is the same that we see in the 3D views. It's one of our highlights is our 2D to 3D workflow. I'm going to start off working a little bit in 3D, but you're going to notice that the majority of work is, the work that I do is in 2D. All right, so we're going to start off with our specific automation. We have them for walls, columns, beams, slabs. We'll see more of them later, but first we'll do a wall here. And so this is, like a lot of our tools, it has a very simple workflow. Basically, you select the element that you want to work on, and now you set a series of properties for what kind of stirrups do you want, what kind of bars do you want, what size, what spacing. You can even set rules for your drafters. So these are standards, minimums that they have to enter on these other pages, and you can lock it so that you can be sure they're not violating company or industry standards here. This tool will even go as far as to create some automatic views and sections, but what we're using it for today, we're just going to go ahead and create this reinforcement. So I'll hit the create button. We can see it's put quite a few bars in there already for us. So I'll go ahead and do my other wall now. Launch the tool one more time. Click the object, hit create. We're using the same properties. It remembers the previous value in a lot of these different applets that we have. Some you need to load, but most of the time they just remember the values that you have. You can see at the ends we're pretty good. We have a pin like we need it, but over here at the corner, we're going to actually add some additional reinforcement to connect these two walls. And before I do that, I'm actually going to go ahead and delete some of these objects like these hairpins. Notice that I'm working on this just as if it's a CAD interface. I can easily select, delete. In this case, I'm actually going to stretch the end of my bars, and it's as simple as you would in CAD. You start the stretch command, select your points, and now I'm going to do a little delta offset here of one inch so I can have that same kind of cover that I had on the other side. And you'll notice that these bars, even though they were created with that wall reinforcement tool, I have full control over the bars right inside of the model itself. The Python part as well is parametric. It stays parametric. So I can always relaunch it, recreate the bars, make changes through that interface, or over here, whatever's more comfortable to me at the time. All right, so now that I have this corner opened up, I'm going to go over to our library, look at a few of our what we call form finder components. And the first one we're going to work with is this wall corner reinforcement. It's one of our expanding and adapting ones. This one doesn't remember the values, so I'm going to load in one of my favorite things about Allplan is the favorites. You may have lots of different parameters. There's a lot of values that you can enter there into the palette. And this favorite lets you just load and save those. You can save it at a company level, at a private level, at a project level. So only one person needs to really configure it, and then everybody else can kind of benefit from that work. So once I got the basic shape in here, I'm just going to come into the corner and then find the edge where they meet and click that spot. And just as we did before, we'd select a shape of reinforcement. We would then configure that shape of reinforcement with the different parameters, size, spacing, lengths, what have you. And when I close it, we'll see that it's created those bars in our model now. If we zoom in, we can see that, maybe we have some collisions here. We can deal with it now. Maybe it's not that big of a deal. We can run a clash check later, as we'll see, checking bar against bar. And if it's something that we need to deal with, we can set all kinds of tolerances on this and then decide along the way. There's no restrictions that it has to stay inside of the wall or stay outside of another bar. You can, do whatever you need to get the amounts, the quantities that you need, and then adjust the views later. You'll see how we can actually change things in just the 2D, move it in just the 2D. But for now, we have a 3D model, quite a bit of stuff in there. And I'm actually going to go ahead and copy this over to my other wall after I prep this corner. And so just as we did before, get rid of our extra bars, bring them into the shape that we need. And notice how it is just a CAD operation here, just stretching, moving, copying things. And now I'll copy this group of reinforcement. I'll actually select the Python part, the app as we call it. Use my multi-select, and then just use my regular old mirror and copy routine. Find the center of this wall, and then just copy right across this line, this vertical line here. And now we have those bars over in our other wall as well. At any point, I can run a reinforcement report. So I'm going to pull up a couple of legends here. I'll do one of our more fanciful ones out of the box. These are fully customizable. We can see that it's showing the shape, but I could also display the mass, the weight. I have the individual bar lengths. I could do the total length of all the bars in this group. I can sum this up. I can group these up in different kinds of ways. Of course, we have some of the more typical ACI-based legends. Something here where we're actually seeing not only what a more, qualified mark number is, but we also got shape codes. We have the ABC dimensions that are commonly used. All of these schedules, like I said, can be completely customized to your heart's content. You can show whatever columns you want. You just basically fill out the first row with placeholders, and then the rest is filled in automatically from the model data. The shape codes, the mark numbers, this is all customizable. Right out of the box, we got the common CRSI, ACI standards, but they can be set up in whatever fashion that you guys find best for your practice. And of course, these will stay updating all the time. So as I go and add more reinforcement, as I make changes to the reinforcement, these schedules are going to get automatically updated for it. And one final note about this data, we actually can export this as ASA, Soule, or directly to a bar bending machine. So if you have like, Schnell machine, you're using a local Optimo situation, you can just send that raw data right to the machine and then do your optimization there. Of course, if you're doing a lot of rebar detailing, you're probably using a bar management tool like ASA or Soule, in which case, again, we can send out an exact ASA file format, an exact Soule file format. We're even working on a two-way street where we can get the status information, whether it's been released or shipped or installed yet. So doing that as well. So this information, not only can it be had in lots of schedules and reports, but it can also be sent out as true data to the various programs that you're using in this field. All right, so now that I got my wall here with some reinforcement, I'm going to turn on the rest of my model. And actually, I'm going to cut a section. So in Allplan, that's as simple as starting the section tool. Now I'm going to just draw a box around what I want to see. I want to get this rafter in the back here. I'll choose a direction that I want to view from. So I'm going to view from above. And then just simply place this section right here. I can filter out, by layers, by items, by types of things. I can remove individual elements. We'll see more how these 2D sections are fully customizable. They're going to get you 99 to 100% of the way you want in terms of look and feel for your drawings there. All right, so now that I have an elevation view, I can do a number of things here. I can use our coupler tool. If we have multiple lifts, maybe at each floor or something, I'm just going to do a single one. But you might, need those to have some kind of serious positive tension, or you might be using a precast on the bottom. In that case, you can use your couplers. So you can just select from the list here whatever manufacturer you may have. You can draw a line, split it, put the coupler, it'll automatically add the form saver, draw the thread on the bar for you. In a minute here, I'm actually going to do a cut and lap, do a lap splice. I can easily just click this button and convert that lap splice later. But for now, I'm just going to actually do my split bar command, which itself also has a lot of functionality. We have an open feature here where I can draw, the shape of an opening or click on an opening and we'll cut the bars around it. In this case, though, I'm going to do an overlap, which gives me the lap splice, and then I'm going to say I want to do it relative to one side, and I want it to be 1 foot 10 inches. So now all I need to do is select the bars that I want to split, and then draw a simple line of where I want it to split at. And now it will cut my bars. We can see if I zoom in my bar here, if I click just one of these, we can see now we have that perfect overlap. Here's the spot where I wanted to start, and it's going to be in exactly that spot for me. And if we look back at our reinforcement schedule, you can see the thing's basically doubled because we have twice as many bars. If they were the same length, we can run our rearranged bar marks. It will automatically find the identical shapes, the identical sizes, and then combine those up into individual mark numbers. You have all kinds of ways of locking it and restricting it, so you have full control over not only what the bar is going to look like, but how it gets put onto a schedule or a report. All right, so now I'm going to look at some foundation work here. So we're going to zoom over to another part of our model. Later in this webinar, you'll see David actually add the additional steel for this section and make some changes to it. For now, though, I'm actually going to make some changes myself. Not only is this model good as a reference, but as you see, I have control over it. I can make changes to it. So what I want to do here is maybe change these 3 footings. Right now, they are 4x4s. So I'll go ahead and make them 5x5s. And I simply just select all the foundations I want to update. And now we can see those get bigger for me. So not only do you have the model, but you can actually make all kinds of changes to it. And then more importantly, Allplan is a true authoring software. I mean, it's used by architects, by engineers to create a lot of 3D model from scratch. And so I'll do some of that now. So this footing here, first, actually, I'm going to add a little reinforcement to it. And before I do that, I'm going to cut another section. So just put a box around what I want to see. I want to view it from the left. So I just drag over there. And now I got a nice section view ready to go. And as I mentioned, these sections are quite powerful. The views, the sections that we have, you kind of have all kinds of format options about how visible hidden edges should look, what the joints should be shown or not shown. We can do clipping edges, handle the finishing elements. When we cut things, they can actually say, hey, I'm concrete, and this is what it looks like, my hatching when I've been cut. So you have a lot of control over what this looks like. And like I said, it's going to get you 99 to 100% of the way you want it to look, converting that rough 3D model into some 2D that actually makes sense for the person who eventually is going to read the drawing. All right, so now I'll go back to my library, use another form finder component. This one is for our column foundation. Like I did before, I'm just going to go ahead and load in a saved version. And you can see as soon as I come over to my foundation, just like with the wall, it's going to expand and adapt to take the shape of that foundation block for us. And now that I have a single one in, it's real easy to just copy that. I can always copy this reinforcement, not as a whole one, but I can also do it bar by bar, placement by placement, any kind of way that you want. All right, so now I'm going to create some fresh model here. This is going to be my step footing. So to do that, I'm going to come here to my west elevation and just start drawing in my 3D model. And I'm going to use a 3D surface tool. You'll notice it's right at the center. This is just where my elevation is being taken. I can move this work plane in and out of the X location if I want to. And so just like any other CAD platform, I'm going to draw, I'm going to track, I'm going to trace. I'm going down 1, over 4. Just like you would in CAD, all of that CAD functionality is going to be available to here. Like I said, this has been a CAD platform since the 80s. It's actually older than AutoCAD, so if it's there, it's almost certainly going to be here as well. And as we know with steps, we need to maintain that offset. So I'm going to just do 1 foot over, 1 foot down to get me started. I'm going to come up to the next step here, and I'm going to do the same thing, 1 foot over, 1 foot down. But at this point, I'm actually going to create a new track point. So I'll just add that as an extension point, and now I can extend along that line and, go up any number of spaces, or, I just have a couple of steps here, so I just terminate at that end where I need to. Now that I have that 2D surface in space, I'm going to go ahead and extrude that. And I want to look at some of our modeling tools that we have here. This is actually based on Siemens Parasolid modeling technology. We bought it from them. It's super high powered, does all the stuff you need for constructive solid geometry. We have all of our primitives, our box, our spheres, our cylinders, what have you. From that, we can do the old push-pull. We can loft, we can sweep, we can do revolutions. with these 3D things, we can get center of gravity, do chamfers, fillets, what have you. Right now, though, I'm going to use the shell tool. This is great. It just lets you select any surface and then do a pop out from it, or in this case, just give some depth to an infinitely small section that we have here. And so now I have a little 18-inch wide step footing. You can see how easy that was to create. I just draw it in an elevation, draw it in a plan, extrude it through that dimension there. And as I said early on, just going to highlight it now, 2D to 3D workflow, that is what rebar detailers love about us the most. They're getting all this 3D, but the guys have been working in 2D all their life. They don't have to go to this whole new paradigm. They're able to work in the way that they always have. And with an extra click or two, they're getting a whole lot more information out of the back of it. And because it's a 3D model, you're going to see all that stuff is in constantly in sync. Every time I make a change, it's going to update my schedules, right? So the 2 bars I just added here now show up in my schedule back up by the wall. The sections themselves, they automatically update. So that's the benefit of 3D, but it's always taken work to get to that. Well, now we have a workflow that avoids all that unnecessary training and implementation. You just keep working in 2D, and it's plug and play, but it's far less training than going to something that is fully 3D, forces you into a 3D environment. All right, so now that I have my object here, I'm going to go ahead and populate it with some reinforcement. We have a lot of reinforcement tools. We won't get to all of them today. We can do all kinds of circles, spiral reinforcements, blade bars, areas of bars, but for now we're just going to be looking at our basic bar shape tool. This is automation, but it's what I call general automation. So we have specific for all the different columns, beams, walls, that kind of stuff. But these weird shaped items, we're automating more and more of them, but we're looking, to do it in a generic kind of sense for now. And so I have all my basic shapes: closed stirrups, open stirrups, L's, hooks, spacers, all that kind of stuff. I can also use my freeform, which I'm going to start with here. And this lets me draw basically any shape of bar. And then, as I mentioned, Allplan is going to automatically detect the shape code and get the ABC dimensions for you. You can also store a library of those types if you want to pull it out that way as well. So lots of different ways you can interact with it. I'm going to use what I think is the easiest, which, like I said, is just as simple as drawing a bar in one of these views or sections. And I'm going to operate it just like my engineers tell me to. They've given me a diameter. They've given me, do I want a hook at the start? So I just check a box and I have a -90 hook there. Do I want a projection into here? If so, I can just change my cover at the end. Right now I got a 2-inch cover. I'll just make that a -2, which will give me a projection. So we can see that bar there. And the way the bar tools, the basic ones, work in Allplan is it's what I like to call shape, label, place, dimension. So I've just shaped the bar. Now I'm going to add a label to my bar. And after that, it's going to ask me if I want to place it. Since it's such a basic shape, rectilinear kind of, it can easily detect the extents of concrete and place that there for me. Once I've placed the bar, it's going to ask me if I want to dimension it and which bars I want to show. We'll see later how I can hide, all but one bar, pick bars, fold a bar, what have you. And now I'm just going to dimension it. Really easy to change the direction that the string goes. You can label this however you want. Turn on the bar marks. You can see the labels and dimensions in Allplan are just a series of checkboxes. Do I want mark numbers, spacing, diameter, quantity, what have you? It's just a matter of checking those boxes. Again, save it as a favorite if you want, and you're good to go. All right, and after I've done the shape, label, place, dimension, now it's just going to ask me if I want to do another bar. So I'll continue on here, move on up a step. It's still holding my my 2-foot extension on there. The cover, or the hook turns off, but that's okay. All I got to do is check that box, and I'm back to being good. And when I place this label, I can choose a new endpoint if I want. I can, it's got all that tracking, tracing, everything, so you can put your labels and leaders down the way you always have. This one I'm not going to use the automatic placement. I'll just do a regular placing line. So if it did not detect it or not in a way that I like, I can just do a start point and an end point, and that's just as good as the auto detect determining it for me. So I'll skip the dimension line. I'll start up another shape here. I'll go ahead and place this, and this one I'll actually do a -2-foot cover at the front, which is going to be, like we said, a projection. And then for this one, I will do a label. Sorry. But instead of doing a placement line or using the auto placement, I'm going to use this little eyedropper. This is in a lot of places. It's all over Allplan, and it's great because you can just click on something close by and actually get the properties for it. And so like that now has got that line there for me, that placement line. All right, so now I did the longitudinal. I'm going to do some transverse bars. Of course, these would just be a simple crossbar on the top, pretty boring, not what I want to show. So I'm going to do something a little more interesting. I'm going to do a section through here. And I'm going to view it from the right. And we can see it's automatically giving it a number. It's putting a placeholder for the page right there. Actually, I just realized I need to click my section first. Do it from the side. Now I can place that section. I can see my bars in there. That's what I was talking about before, the benefit of having a 3D without having to work for it. You cut that section, it's already done a bunch of 2D work for you. All right, so now I'm going to start my bar shape tool again. This time we're going to use the stirrup, the closed stirrup. And I'm going to turn on my expand and adapt to edges. This is great for a lot of our shape bars. It's going to like go through the 2D cross section, whatever you put in front of it, and try to look for a place where it can add a stirrup. So I'll just come here to my square where it's made for. You can see I can edit size, spacing, hook lengths, bending pin factors, covers. Something to mention about these, I can edit cover on a face-by-face basis. So here I can see multiple covers exposed. Even with these freeform bars, I had 10 faces I was going along. That means I have 10 cover variables I can enter. That means I have 9 bending pin factors I can enter. I have 2 hook lengths I can always enter on either side. Whenever I change the bar diameter, it's automatically going to calculate the hook length for me, calculate the bending pin for me according to CRSI, ACI. I can override that, of course, on a bar-by-bar basis, face-by-face, corner edge-by-edge basis, but I can also set my own company standard. So if I always have a 1-foot hook on a number 4 in 4 KSI concrete with grade 60, I can set that as my standard, and it will always come out that way when I place the bar the first time. All right, so I'm going to break away from the shape label place dimension, use our sweep bar along path tool. This is great. I can actually select multiple sections. So if I had a bar that was changing shape along the structure, I can, cut multiple sections, draw that bar in the individual shapes, and then it will actually interpolate between each section to find the shape of that bar as it moves along the length of the structure. So that's one mode of operation. The second is we can actually select a single cross section and then use the geometry of our structure to change the shape of our bar. So I can select a path. I'm going to do, my first path is just the bottom edge, and now my second path will be the top edge. And so I'm going to just select all these little lines here of my 3D object. If I can draw my own lines too, it doesn't need to be the geometry of the object. And you'll notice that it's going to not only hold that proper cover on the bottom, but the proper cover on the top. And if we look at it, we have all those bars in exactly the position they need to be for this kind of structure here. Like I said, this isn't something we would use, but I wanted to show off some of the power. And that tool could also be used, but just for a flat bar here, perhaps. And if we look back at the schedule, we're going to see all of our bars have been added for us. Any other sections or places it should have shown up, it will be there as well. So we can see that this is getting quite lengthy as well. All right. So now that we have a lot of 3D here, let's go ahead and create some 2D that's ready for drawings. And as I mentioned, we can change the visibility. We can actually move these bars just in the 2D. Don't actually move it in the 3D if we want. I can choose if I want like a single bar, choose which bars to show, or folded as I mentioned. I'm just going to show some single bars here for now. And then I'm going to go ahead and dimension and label. So we saw the bar shape tools automatically getting that for us, but we can do it after the fact, right? This bar is not just going to show up in a single section. We're going to want to show it elsewhere, and we're going to want to dimension it there. And so we can easily use these tools to go and get that information and apply that label. And notice the context menu. I can right-click on a bar or any object, get the tool specific to that object. I have my ribbon. I also have my keyboard shortcuts. All these things can be customized to your heart's content. Move these buttons wherever you want to, change the keyboard shortcuts. It's fully up to you and your team to decide what works best. All right, so I'll just drop a couple of labels here. These are pretty basic labels that we're doing, or bar shapes, I guess, because they're the same in both directions. But something I wanted to show you is the flexibility, right? So I can come into any one of these bars here and edit right on screen what the parameters are. So if I want to say 5 bars here, I just updated that, and now it's updated the spacing and the quantity, right? So we had 5 inches before, now we have 4 inches. So not only the bars, they stay parametric, but the Python parts as well. So if I come in here and I change, let's say, the spacing, we had 8 at 6 inches. Now it looks like we're going to have 4 at our 1 foot spacing. Oh, this guy's in the way. Let me, once I close it, it's going to find the identical Python parts. So remember, these were one copied from the other. So when I hit OK, it's going to go back to that one, set the same parameters, recalculate it. Now all of our sections and views, any label that we had, our schedules, any quantities that we had, those are going to be updated in real time and be reflected immediately in the drawings. All right, so now that we have a nice drawing, some nice schedules, we're going to go ahead and put these on a layout editor, or on a layout. And to do that in Allplan, it's exactly the same kind of workflow as AutoCAD. I'm basically going to select a viewport from my drawing. In Allplan, we actually have a little more functionality that we create this nice derived from section over here. We can put them on their own little drawing files real quick, and it makes it real simple to plop down like that. You'll notice I get an outline for it. If I want to see even more or do multiple at a time, I can click multiple boxes and now just drag these around. And when you do it this way, it's kind of nice because you can try and fit it in some little spot where there's not a lot of room for you. And then the last couple that I'm going to place here, we'll do one for our step foundation. And when I go to place it, I can see it's not going to fit. So I can easily change the scale after the fact. And notice it's going to scale the font down for us. So it's going to maintain that perfect, 1/8 inch font or whatever we have. So again, a lot of the 2D you've come to expect over the years. Not super exciting, but people want to make sure that all of the stuff that they rely on is going to be there. And so I make a point to show it here. And so with that, we have our drawing. And I can actually, now that I have all my data in Allplan, I can actually push it back up to Bimplus. And then David or whoever else, maybe you have MEP on here as well, they can pull in the reinforcement model, see any of the clashes that I've come up with. I've already uploaded the model once. We'll see it in a bit here after David does his portion in SDS2, but I can update that model. I can create a separate revision. I can replace it or just do a whole new separate model if I like. And as soon as I do that, if somebody's wanting to get notified, it will notify them that there's new changes for them to bring into their model for a federated model. And with that, I've done my portion of authoring for the incomplete SDS2 model. David's going to take it over now and do his portion in SDS2 to complete that model. So please, David, take it away.
Thanks, Frank. So if you don't mind, before I start, I have one question. So maybe I missed it. Did we get placement notes for our bars for the field to place those bars as well? I saw the bending schedules, all that. Did we also get placement notes in there?
Not sure what you mean. You might be talking about adding notes to the labels, or are you talking about actually adding attribute data? Oh, and another thing, maybe you're talking about the statusing with Soule, so we get notes about if it's been placed or not, or sorry, I'm not understanding the question.
Yeah, so typically in my former life, I was, learned enough to be dangerous with the rebar detailing and that, so dabbled in a little bit, but there was always notes and information that need to be passed in schedules to the field for the guys placing that, so they knew how many bars were to be placed. Might be 4 bars top and bottom, things like that. So maybe I just missed that in the notes there.
Yeah, I actually didn't show any. That's a good point. We can attach custom text to the notes. We can also attach attribute data to our bars. So not only are we tracking, what kind of material it is and all that, but we also can put, if it's epoxy coated, if it needs to be top and bottom. So that information can be placed actually as attribute data on the rebar object. It's smart. It knows it's a bar, and it knows a lot of things about being a bar. And then that information can come through your schedules or your labels or what have you.
Okay. Perfect. Very good. Thanks, Frank. So I will start my screen share here and go to this. And so obviously same model, very similar model as what Frank started with. Like he said, this model actually originated here in SDS2, and then we passed it over to Allplan. So very similar to Allplan, 3D model, but I can go ahead and work in a 2D view here to get my information input. And the way I'm going to do this is I've already overlaid a PDF, design drawing that's coming from our contract documents. I just overlay those in the model. That gives me a nice heads-up display. So I'm just going to finish off here with my columns, adding this information in here. I specify the section size, give it a base plate from a schedule, specify the bottom of the column, specify the top elevation of the column, and now it's kind of a matter of point and click here. We can rotate the columns differently as we need. And then for these rest here, those aren't -2 feet down. They're right at the 99.6, which is my current view. Get my rotation correct again there. And with SDS2, as I build this model, it's actually the stick model is actually looking at the different framing situations to figure out framing situation checks. So as I model these two columns over here, you'll notice that connections were actually designed as I created that. Little limitation there with the horizontal brace, but that'll be corrected here as I finish off that first floor. Same with the base plate. So just by specifying that plate from the schedule, I get my material, my holes, my welds all created. So there's a lot of automation happening here as I build the stick model. I'll open up another view here for my first floor framing information. So this will be where I model in my beam information. And similar process, okay, add beam, section size. I have my O snaps across the top here. And then it's a matter of point and click, work point to work point. Where they're identical, same size, same work point to work point length, orientation, I simply middle click at the left end. It gives me an identical repeat of the previous beam that I input. But makes the input a lot faster, cuts down on the number of times I'm clicking on my screen here. And then I can update the section sizes. 1855, then we have the 18 by 35s running vertical on the screen. Okay, and then I can input my horizontal brace there, the WT 7 by 11. Notice it's a -6 inches down, so I use my little Z offset up at the top here to punch in -6 to get that horizontal brace in the correct plane. And again, as I modeled it, you're going to notice that all my connections are designed. Everything is designed to AISC standards. And not only do we design connections for, one single member framing to one single member, as these connections are designed, it's looking at that entire joint to check for erectability, to make sure things are going to fit well in the field. It's checking bolt clearances, doing simple things like, coping the bottom of this flange to make sure that as we're erecting this, it can drop in over top of that shear tab. And then if I apply the moment connection as we have indicated here, I'll do a simple field welded moment connection. We're going to see all the end preps done for us, all the welds. The backing bars are optional, but we're also checking for doublers and stiffeners in the column. And where those are required, it's going to do, again, those erectability checks. So now a simple shear tab can't be erected easily in that situation. SDS2 has the intelligence built in to know that and what to do. So we go ahead and extend that out past the flange, and we get that extended past flange configuration now. So then I can go ahead and copy this up where I have repetition. I'll set a selection filter to beams, so I only pick the beams in this case. I can do a member copy, just a simple single copy where I'm going to pick the points, and I'll use the user coordinate system and ortho to make sure I get these copied directly up. I also want to make sure I get the correct point selected here, so I'm going to pick the exact point of my beam. And then we'll go 12 feet up to the second floor. Finally, third floor will be up at the top of those columns. Again, as I copy those, it's going to design all the connections. So obviously, as I make copies, the framing situation could change. So it does need to design the connection when you do that and make changes. And then where there's things like a sloping roof, I can easily grab my member ends and do a stretch on those, move those down 1 foot. So that creates about a 1/4 on 12 pitch for my roof. And as you dig into SDS2, as you look into SDS2, one of the things that we do is we take a very fabricator and detailer-centric approach to things. And we do things, simple things like this, where when we design the connections, we're going to go ahead and square cut the ends of those beams. Now, it is optional. We give you the flexibility to override it or change the settings. Typically, in my experience, fabricators don't want to create a lot of little bevel cuts for simple slopes like this. Much easier to take that square cut beam and fabricate it that way. Saves them time, makes them a lot more efficient. So we're all about efficiency in detailing and fabrication. Simple things like that we really focus on to try to maximize your detailing and fabrication efficiency. From there, we can do miscellaneous items as well, all the gingerbread, if you will. And for that, we have what we call components. So those components are going to read the members and adapt to the member information. In this case, I'll do a simple outrigger. And it's just going to be on the near side of my beams, and it's going to be a plate. It's going to be a full depth plate. Although I have a W14 over here and some 18s over here, it's going to read each one of those individually and adapt to the different sizes of members in there. Everything is piece marked on the fly as I go. So if I turn off my reference drawing and use my display options to turn on the member piece marks, we're going to see all these members were being assigned a piece mark in the background as I built the model and modified the model. Where they're identical, we're going to get those piece marks combined. So we have two B_104s over here, tells me they're identical. They'll receive the same drawing. Same thing at an individual material level. I can drill down to the material here. You see everything is assigned a piece mark, P96. And if I tell it to select all the P96s, it's going to go through the model, find all those P96s that were identical to that. And then from here, we generate our detail. So I can tell it to create my 2D detail. So this is going to go through, generate the 2D detail of this. It's going to add labels, dimensions, annotations, all that stuff we need for fabrication. This is a pretty simple, basic beam here, so it's pretty clean drawing out of the box for us. Everything in here is point and click and drag, very CAD-like, so it's going to be a smooth transition if you're making the transition from another software. Full bill of material is generated for you as well. And then we simply have to place this on a sheet outline similar to what Frank did over in Allplan. I can create a new sheet here, pick my sheet outline, and then I add that detail onto this sheet, transfers over the bill of material information here. I've had a rev chart, basic title block set up here for me, but this is all customizable as well as far as the layout of the bill, the look of all of this, use your own company logos, create your own title blocks, all that, very, very simple to do here. So then this is kind of our final product, and then from all of that is we make sure that as long as the model is always up to date and accurate, all our information from the drawings to the CNC to transferring over to our production software, all that is taken from the model and pushed downstream. So we make sure that model is accurate and up to date. Everything downstream will go smoothly and be accurate as well. So then I can go ahead and, if there are revisions and things, I'm going to turn off my member piece marks again. And you can see in this case I've got anchor bolts that are just straight with that washer and nut down on the bottom. You know, where I have revisions, there's a number of different ways I can update things, but what I'm going to do in this case, I'm going to use my display options to only display the anchor rods in this model for me. So that very easily lets me come in here, grab my anchor rods, do a mass edit on those, and I can do something like come in here and maybe we got to have a hooked anchor rod here instead for whatever reason. So I have that anchor rod type that I can change there. You know, adjust those hook lengths, 6 inches. I don't know, maybe it's 10 inches, something along those lines. Little bit bigger hook on there. And it's going to go through, update all of those anchor bolts for me, all those anchor rods for me. Go ahead, back in my display options, turn that all back on. And then, you know, I can even easily, I probably would have been doing this before I finalized the rest of the model, because that anchor bolt plan is typically what you're getting out first. But we can go ahead and pick our columns and run a anchor rod tool that's going to locate all the anchor bolt holes in our base plates for us. Again, I can do that hooked option here, adjust my hook length, things here. You can see it's going through, finding all my anchor rod holes, and it added those very quickly to that model for me. So, Frank, I don't want to focus too much on me here today, so I'm going to turn it back over to you, and you can kind of show us how we might use Bimplus to collaborate, get these two models collaborated together on one platform, and what that all looks like.
All right, let me take back the screen from you. Should be flipping over now for everybody. And won't be looking at any more Allplan. I think we've done enough in there. So we're going to go now to our Bimplus platform. And we looked at a little bit before, just a single tool of Bimplus implemented inside Allplan. Now we're going to look at the main way people kind of use this outside of their individual tools is the dashboard. You get to that by going to portal.bimplus.net. I'm using Firefox, but it could just as well be Chrome or Edge or any other browser that you might have. When you get there, you're going to see, oh, go ahead.
So this is browser based, and I wouldn't need to install additional pieces of software. Is that correct?
Yep, and that's one of the beauties of it is you can share with people who have no software at all. We even have an app for your tablet or your phone, so they can visualize the model. We'll see in a bit, how they can actually read data or even make changes if you give them permission to.
Perfect.
So the first thing we're going to see is the dashboard. Like I said, before we get into the model or anything else, it's just a quick heads-up display of your most recent projects and some data about your current project selected, a map where it's at, information about the members, the models, the documents that you've uploaded, any open or solved issues you might have, and then data, which can always be expanded as well. And for David's portion of that model, once he created it in SDS2, he's able to export it as an IFC or any number of files. And then Allplan or Bimplus is able to take that in as any number of files as well. So any 3D model that you have, you can get into here, whether it's through Allplan or directly through one of the files I just shown. It shows us a list of all the models, their current revision, who's uploading it, when they did so. We have the same ability for documents, so if you want to put contract documents, RFIs or something, like I said, this is not just for within the team, but also for your clients, your customers, any other stakeholders that might be involved if they want to, share their stuff, get it into the model, or view what you're working on. Once you have that on there, I'm going to go over to the tool we looked at previously, the BIM Explorer. This time, though, it's the web implementation. It has a lot more of these features turned on. Additionally, you can make your own features. We have a lot of people out there making features. They're apps like an app store, and so you install them into your Bimplus, and now you're able to operate them. But what you can see here is it's pulling in the model. We had the original model, then we have what I've added over here. I can flip through the various revisions that we have, turn them on and off to see what has or hasn't changed. We don't need to have that keen of an eye. Obviously, we let computers do what they do best. One of those things is actually tracking the revisions. So I can come in here to, like I said, one of my many apps. This one is the revision comparison. And so I start with my current revision. I just set that as revision 2, and then I'm going to check or choose the revision that I want to check it against. And I can even apply some filtering criteria. So maybe I don't care about changes that have happened to the beams or the foundations or something that maybe I've been working on that was made in Allplan. So I can even filter by author perhaps and see what's been done to it. Let me get a sip of water while this is working. This actually runs on Amazon web servers. Normally they're quite a bit quicker than your local host computer, but as you can see, sometimes it takes a little time to get back. We're doing this in real time. We got thousands of members to compare. So, and it actually does normally store that on there, but for whatever reason, it decided to run it again. Not a big deal. Only took a couple of seconds. We can clearly see the big changes here. We've added a whole new set of structure to our model. But if I turn on the isolate, it's actually going to hide everything or make it semi-transparent. So now I'm able to see some of the changes that were made. So I can see these J-hooks that David had put on there. If I flip over the deleted objects, I can see the original ones that were in place. Modified were the nuts. It looks like those maybe have changed a little bit. Likewise, modified materials. So maybe these have changed in some way. And it's pretty nice that I can actually click on any element, get that information, what has changed, what the properties are. I can do a nice little visualization, see what maybe the bowl holes change perhaps. And you can see here the actual changes in the values and what days they have changed on. All right. So we saw how we can find the changes. We can isolate those things. We can identify what has happened to the structure, zoom in and click on each and every single one of these objects. They got all the attribute information that David was putting into them. So he had mentioned like the mark number, these kinds of things. And actually I need to back out of the comparison control. And then if I go ahead and click on a object here, keep misclicking. We can see all that information. So the bark number, it was B104. We can see the description, what materials was used, who created it. So all that attribute data that is being authored in other places will show up here. And when we go into Allplan, it will be there for us as well. Now we were able to pick up that J-hook change because of the revision compare. We might not notice that it causes problems for us later, but if we ever miss something like that, we can easily catch it with our clash detection. You're probably familiar with collision checks. Just checking two items to see if they match or hit each other. In Allplan Bimplus, we actually take this a step further with our clash sets. And so if I edit this, what it allows me to do is I create two selection sets, and then I have different attributes, and I'm checking. So maybe I want to check all of my steel and something else against my reinforcement. And so that's what I've done here. I'm saying take my steel design, check it against my reinforcement. And now it'll tell me where I have clashes, and then I can actually click on these clashes one by one and resolve them, make notes, create an issue automatically for it. But you can see it's identifying exactly which elements are clashing, where at, and I can zoom in right there and identify it. And once I do find an issue, obviously I'm going to have to do something about this. Usually it's just a matter of creating a task for somebody else to solve if I'm not solving it myself. So there's a couple ways you can create these tasks or issues. This is fundamental to all collaboration, right? We come to a central place, we interact together, and so this is one of the main ways we do that. So I can say, hey, check this collision. Maybe it's okay, or maybe it's not, or maybe something needs to change about it. But I can put a title, a description, a status. I can make certain parties responsible, have a due date on here. I can attach files or hyperlinks. We can even do these spots. So if we're not sure that somebody's going to catch what we're looking at, I can actually click this spot button and then put a spot on it. Actually, it looks like I just did it on the foundation here. So let me go ahead and make that thing transparent. So yeah, add a spot. I can even have comments, so when I come back days later, or maybe once you automatically issue that task or save it, it's going to notify the parties involved, the different responsible parties, and then they can actually click here. It's going to bring them right back to that spot. It's going to add any spots that I did, make any invisibleness, or hide any objects that I had. I was actually clicking around afterwards and I didn't hit save. But once I hit save, like I said, it would update people. They can click a link and it's going to bring them right back to the model. It's going to make everything transparent that was. We'll see in a bit how we can add notes and dimensions to things. And I can freeze frame this as what we call a slide. Then I can actually add multiple slides to an issue so that somebody can kind of work around the problem and, like I said, have a whole conversation around it. Like I said, maybe it looks fine for what we're doing here. You can add a comment, and it will notify all the responsible parties or anybody that you've added on this link here. And then just to take a look at what those slides that I mentioned, we also have those in the main program of Bimplus, not just inside of the issues. So here we can see I can quickly go to a certain area of my model. I can turn on a section. I can add some dimensions. I can, cut a section over here, or maybe I fly over to another part with a note on it that this weld that I'm afraid might get missed. And it makes it real easy to kind of bounce around the model, highlighting the different things that are affecting whatever you're looking at, and just quickly flip back and forth so you're not having to rotate around the model, work in a 3D environment. You can just get that nice view that you want and then flip right to it, facilitate the conversation, flip back to another view, facilitate the conversation. And so these are pretty powerful when you're working in a 3D model, especially with people who aren't familiar with a 3D environment, but they need to get in there and understand things. So create a series of slides, a series of issues, they go right to it. It's pretty easy for them to navigate around. You just click on a spot and do an orbit around it. But that is complicated for people who don't use 3D or don't use it every day. And so being able to flip to the right spot, get them to the information they need to see without having them navigate to it themselves is a big deal for collaboration. All right. The last thing we're going to look at today in Bimplus is just filtering, which is very powerful for detailers, steel and rebar alike. I can filter on any kind of elements here. Oops. And if I click on this eyedropper and then click an object, it's going to show me the properties of that object. And now I can say, oh, well, I want to filter by cross-section. I'm not sure if, it's cross-section or some other variable, but I can get a quick sense of the value, check that, and now apply it. So it's going to filter all my cross-sections here for me. And if I turn those on one by one, maybe I see them, maybe I don't, but I can use my isolate. So now I can say, hey, I have 41 of these L6 by 3.5s, and I can quickly turn those on and off and see what I got. Or I can turn on the whole model, and now it's completely color-coded based on cross-section, any attribute that I want. Maybe it's type, so I'm looking at beams and columns, what have you. And so there's any number of ways that you can filter with any number of criteria, and you can even do just more than one. So it'll have beams with this cross-section or beams with that cross-section will get different colors as well. All right, and I think that's the last thing I wanted to show inside of Bimplus today. I know we have some poll questions David wants to ask, and then some Q&A, so I'll pass it back over to David now for that.
Okay, very good, Frank. Thank you, appreciate it. All very informative. I learned a bunch myself here today, so I appreciate your time and giving us this presentation. So we did promise a special code here for the discount on your subscription and to receive those 2 additional licenses for 6 months along with that. So as I advance my slide here, get out your pen and paper if you don't have one handy already. Here's our code. So when you call into sales or you email us and that, make sure you are sharing this code with them to make sure that you get your special discount here. And, do want to give everybody a big thank you here before we get into the questions and that. Just make sure, we know everybody's busy. We appreciate everybody's time and taking time out of your busy day to spend some time here with us learning a little bit today. So put those questions in the the Q&A area here of the On24 platform. We'll get to those, and we'll step into the polls here a little bit. Thanks, everybody. So here's our first poll, and this is related then to the collaboration tool you're currently using. So, you know, Frank was showing the functionality there inside of Bimplus. So we're kind of curious what you use for your collaboration tools here currently today. You know, I know Autodesk has some products. Tremble's got some products. Maybe you're not doing anything yet. So just kind of curious on that information there. In the meantime, while that poll's going, I'm just going to look at a few of the questions here, give you guys all a minute to answer that poll question. So first question we had is related to reference models and or drawings being imported to Allplan. So I know I showed that in SDS2. We didn't necessarily see that in Allplan, but so that's what that question's related to. Frank, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, absolutely, David. We can import, export over 70 different types of files in Allplan. Pretty much anything that you want to get into or out of Allplan, whether it's 2D or 3D, can be you know, brought in or taken out of there. So there's really no limit. We just did this as a collaboration, a demonstration of the collaboration, but you can absolutely bring in PDFs for underlays. You can bring in any kind of reference data that you have.
Good. So we didn't necessarily see it in Allplan, saw it in SDS2. That functionality does exist in Allplan as well, though. Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead then and give you a little bit of time to answer that poll question. So here we got a third of you are not doing any collaboration. I'm kind of surprised by that. So we need to get you guys up on doing collaboration a little bit more. That could be very useful. Simple file transfers in there. Looks like some are using Trimble Connect, and then we got another third of you on Bimplus. So good to see some of you on Bimplus there. And next poll question we have is related to your rebar detailing. So what tools or software are you using today for rebar detailing? And then I'll take a look at, we do have a couple more questions here. So another one here is related to Canadian standards. So it looks like we got some friends from the north with us. Frank, are the Canadian standards supported and incorporated into Allplan?
Hey, they are. And Mexico as well, and pretty much any country that you can think of, we support. And everything is open, as I mentioned in the webinar. So if we're not meeting, you know, that specific locality in Canada, whatever province you might be or state you might be in the United States, you can absolutely adapt those standards to your locality, and we help you out with that during the training process.
Okay, and that's actually a good segue here to the next question then, while I give a little more time for this second poll. Training, so you mentioned training process. What does the training look like for Allplan, and what's offered, what's available for training options?
So right out of the box, we have Learning Management System. It's a series of online self-paced videos. You can watch it whenever you want at any time. It's a very powerful system for managers to understand what their detailers, their drafters are going through. They get reports of what they've completed, how much time they spent on it, how they're doing. They submit homework assignments. We grade it. After that, we do weekly help sessions. We can do specialized training. We take your projects. We do them in front of you, if you like, to show you some different workflows. So it's very hands-on if it needs to be, but we have a lot of stuff that can be done at any time by anybody, anywhere. So those are the kinds of things we offer, but it's really tailored to the individual. You know, starting small, like I said, it'll probably just be the online training with a little bit of phone help. But for bigger companies, organizations, we have enterprise where we actually come and do on-site live training if you'd like as well.
Very good. And I'll just answer that, throw out there from the SDS2 side, very similar options. We have the online learning, online training that you kind of do at your own pace, self-paced type of training. We offer a training session here, week-long training session here in Lincoln, Nebraska, once a month. And then, if a little bigger companies and you want us to come on site, we can certainly discuss that and work that out as well. So let's check out the results of that second poll. So as far as rebar detailing, looks like we got some using Rebar CAD, nobody on ASA or Tekla right now. We got a Revit in there, have some Allplan users in there, and then we have quite a few on the other. Maybe go ahead and guess that might be just straight AutoCAD or something else like that, but there could leave it wide open there. So interesting results on that. And I believe this is our third and last poll question that we have. Is what are you doing for the rebar detailing services? Is that in-house? Are you doing it in-house but looking to outsource? Are you outsourcing all that rebar detailing, or are you currently outsourcing and looking to bring it in-house? So just kind of curious what that looks like for everybody. And then couple other questions here. So, there is a question related to the closed stirrups on your step footing that you created in there, Frank. And that question is related to the size for those, or excuse me, the marks, the bar. It's related to the bar marks. So, you had that slope coming up, so obviously them closed stirrups were going to kind of be different lengths as you go. Would each one of those bars have received the same mark, or would each individual one have received a separate mark?
So it depends. There's some options there. You can do those as individual marks or what we call sub-marks. So it could be like Mark 1A, Mark 1B. And then you can always go in and take a group of bars and sign them a new mark if you'd like as well. So it can be either way.
Okay, very good, very good. How about different materials? So we really focused on concrete and rebar inside of Allplan, and then obviously the structural steel and SDS2. Can we do different material types with Allplan? Maybe it's glue lambs. I know a lot of the big timber construction is pretty popular in parts of the U.S. here. So can we do things like that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, we talk all the time about our awesome concrete and rebar detailing tools, but we also do have tools for the rest of architecture. So we can do, different glue lamb beams, all kinds of rafter, roof systems. We can have all kinds of intricate railing systems and windows and doors, which are multi-material, and even some more exotic stuff too. And I know this was asked about other materials, but I should also mention the rebar can be epoxy coated, have all kinds of end conditions as well. But yeah, there's pretty much no limit. Materials, we have a large catalog, which automatically gets the name, the standard, and the right appearance. But you can add to that as well and create your own custom materials if it's not in there. But we have a lot of stuff out of the box for all kinds of construction materials.
Okay, very good. It looks like a couple of you are mentioning here that you never saw the discount code. We do have a attendee list in that, and we gather these questions up. So I will definitely make sure that we reach out to those of you who attended the webinar here. Make sure you got that code. I apologize for that. And then I think right now it looks like our last question. So I'm gonna show our last poll results, and then I'm gonna hit on the last question. So the last question I see here, Frank, again, is an Allplan question, and somebody's got a concrete parking garage. It's seismic design category D. Are there specific rules built into Allplan to help with that?
Not specifically. When you do things as either a hook or a tie, it knows and it will adapt to that, and it's automatically, I think, sized up that extra ½ inch or whatever it needs to be for the hook lengths for seismic. But the thing about seismic, it's usually just a different type of reinforcement condition, and we can absolutely reinforce those, where you have your strong column, weak beam, or whatever it may be. We can absolutely handle all those different situations and conditions that you may have, and yeah, so we do support seismic as well.
Okay. Very good, very good. So again, yeah, we'll make sure we reach out to those of you who didn't see the code, get you that discount code for sure. And I believe, from what I see here, looks like we got to pretty much all the questions that we had and answered all the questions. Yeah, I guess you could see our final poll results there. So it looks like most of you are doing the rebar detailing in-house. A little bit of outsource. I'm looking to bring that in from outsourcing, so that's interesting information there as well. Yeah, questions are done. You know what, Frank, thank you. Appreciate your time here and presenting Allplan to everybody. That was very good information. Great job. And then thanks everybody else to just attending, taking time out of your busy days here. One more time, I will repeat that code. So if you missed it before, we'll reach out to you, but I'm going to mention it one more time here, is that discount code. Provide that to your sales rep as you call in or email in to make sure we get you that discount. And yeah, thanks everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.
David, thank you everybody.